We all agreed no gifts this year, my mom said, as my son watched his cousin unwrap an iPhone and burst into happy tears. That night, I canceled every subscription I was paying for. I still remember the sting of the winter air that Christmas Eve, but it was nothing compared to the cold realization that hit me like a physical blow. My own family had been subtly bleeding us dry for years, and I was finally about to fight back. That night, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached, watching the Christmas lights blur across our minivan's windshield like shattered promises. Ethan, bless his heart, reached over and gave my hand a steady squeeze, that paramedic grip of his, always so reassuring against my trembling fingers. "You okay?" he asked, quiet. "Fine," I lied, watching the gentle snowfall. We both knew the polished, perfect colonial awaiting us, with its symmetrical wreaths and coordinated lights, held more tension than cheer. In the back, Emma and Jake clung to their modest offerings, peppermint brownies they'd baked themselves, wrapped in simple parchment and tied with candy cane ribbons. Jake, his little legs bouncing, traced the edges of the handmade cards they'd spent hours on. "Remember what we talked about?" I whispered as we pulled into the long driveway. "Christmas isn't about expensive gifts, it's about being together. Presents, not presents." Emma, 9 going on 90, nodded solemnly. "That mantra? It was our lifeline ever since Ethan's ambulance service cut overtime 3 months ago." A lump formed in my throat. Our small gifts felt impossibly heavy as we walked towards that front door, graced by a wreath that probably cost more than our entire holiday budget. My mother, Carolyn Harris, the picture of perfection in cream and pearls, opened the door before we even rang. Her smile was tight, not quite reaching her eyes as she air-kissed my cheek. "There you are," she said, almost a command. "Remember, we all agreed no gifts this year." And oh, the wave of relief that washed over me was almost embarrassing. For weeks, I dreaded this moment, terrified our financial reality would be exposed. "That's right," I agreed, the tension melting from my shoulders. The kids made brownies and cards, though. Mom glanced at them like they were curious artifacts from another civilization. "How thoughtful. Put them by the appetizers." The house smelled of pine and cinnamon, a scene straight out of a magazine. Dad emerged, patting Jake awkwardly, then giving Emma a slightly more enthusiastic hug. "Merry Christmas, you too." Then, to me, Monica, "The Johnsons next door just got a boat." In December. He shook his head, a mix of disbelief and admiration. I carefully placed our brownies next to crystal dishes overflowing with catered hors d'oeuvres. Emma meticulously arranged their handmade cards on the entry table. Jake, meanwhile, stared, mesmerized, at the enormous tree, surrounded by nothing. No presents. Just as we'd all agreed. The knot in my stomach began to unwind. "Can we play in the basement, Mom?" Jake asked. "Sure, honey. Just remember to use indoor voices." The minutes bled into small talk and carefully chosen compliments. Dad boasted about golf, Mom grilled Ethan about his career prospects, I answered questions about school, all while stealing glances at the clock. Then, 20 minutes later, the front door burst open. No knock. My younger sister, Tessa, swept in like a winter hurricane, her husband Logan trailing behind, arms burdened with glossy shopping bags and professionally wrapped boxes. Their teenage sons followed, faces already glued to brand new phones. "We're here," Tessa announced, as if the party couldn't possibly start without her. She shrugged off a coat that easily cost more than our monthly mortgage. My mother clapped her hands, practically giddy. "You've arrived. Let's open gifts." Those words hit me like a physical blow, a punch to the gut. I glanced at Ethan, his jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. Our children emerged from the basement, confusion clouding their faces as they watched their cousins deposit an avalanche of presents under the tree. "I thought we agreed no gifts," I said quietly to Mom. Dad sighed, dramatically. "Don't start, Monica. You always take things too seriously." Tessa shot me a smirk, adjusting her cashmere sweater. "Relax, it's Christmas. We just did what we could. Don't be dramatic." My children stood frozen at the edge of the room, watching as their cousins tore through wrapping paper, revealing Apple Watches, A gaming laptop Dad offhandedly mentioned cost $2,800 but was worth every penny. And Disneyland tickets presented with theatrical flair. Emma clutched her handmade card tighter, the paper crinkling under her small fingers. The pride that had brightened her eyes just moments ago dimmed, like a light bulb losing power. Jake inched closer, his hand slipping into mine. As the chaos of expensive gifts unfolded, a flood of memories overwhelmed me, sharp, precise recollections of a pattern established long ago. Age 14, giving up summer camp so Tessa could attend cheerleading training. "You're so practical, Monica," Mom had praised, the words carrying an unspoken invoice. Age 23, co-signing Tessa's first apartment because she had no credit. "You're so responsible," they'd said, as if responsibility was a consolation prize for being less loved. Age 28, having a modest wedding because my sister might get engaged soon, and we shouldn't overshadow her moment. I watched my children's faces fall as their cousins boasted, and something inside me shifted. Not with the fire of anger, but with the chilling clarity of ice water. "We're heading home early," I announced softly, helping my children into their coats as the celebration continued without pause. "The kids have school prep tomorrow, but we haven't even had dessert." Mom protested, genuinely surprised we wouldn't stay to witness more of our exclusion. "You can enjoy our brownies." "Merry Christmas," I responded, my voice steady, unfamiliar even to myself. I wasn't yielding, wasn't apologizing, wasn't explaining. The freedom of this small rebellion tasted sweet on my tongue. In the car, snowflakes dancing in our headlights, Jake's small voice broke the silence. "Are we poor, Mom?" I met Ethan's eyes in the rearview mirror, a lifetime of understanding passing between us. "No, honey," I answered, reaching back to squeeze his knee. "We just believe some things are worth more than stuff." As we drove away from the house that never quite felt like home, I realized the weight I'd carried for years wasn't obligation or responsibility. It was the burden of allowing myself to be diminished. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt it beginning to lift. I lay awake beside Ethan, watching moonlight trace patterns across our bedroom ceiling. The house was quiet, our children asleep, but my mind roared like a hurricane. My body felt weightless, hollow not with grief or even anger, but with a strange, crystalline clarity I'd never experienced before. I slipped from bed, careful not to disturb Ethan's exhausted sleep. His shift schedule had become even more brutal since the overtime cuts. Floorboards creaked beneath my bare feet as I padded into the kitchen. The electric kettle hummed to life. I grabbed chamomile tea, Mother's standard recommendation for any crisis. "Tea soothes everything, Monica," she'd always say, usually while expertly ignoring the actual problem. My laptop screen glowed blue in the darkened kitchen. Opening my bank app, I scanned months of transactions, finding patterns I'd willfully ignored for years. The evidence accumulated like snowdrifts against a door I could no longer force open. There it sat, property insurance for my parents' colonial, $1,400 charged to my card, just until next month, nearly 13 months ago. I remembered Dad's call, the casual request delivered as if he were asking for the time. "We're between accounts right now, sweetie, just temporary." Next appeared my mother's cell phone, $65 monthly for 4 years now, just until we figure out a better plan, she'd promised. For years of figuring, apparently. Then, Tessa's emergency dental bill from September, $1,200, transferred directly to her account within an hour of her tearful call. 3 weeks later, her Instagram was flooded with beach photos from Cabo San Lucas, her perfect teeth gleaming in every selfie. The tally grew as I scrolled through, shared subscriptions, membership fees, unexpected expenses that somehow became my responsibility. Names and numbers blurred until I opened a new spreadsheet and titled it simply, Reclaiming. Column by column, I documented every service, every dollar, every broken promise. With each entry, my breathing steadied. Netflix family, $19.99 per month, shared with parents and Tessa. Amazon Prime household, $14.99 per month, with both sets of secondary users. Verizon family plan, $318.75 per month, covering parents and Tessa. Spotify Premium Family, $16.99 per month for everyone. LA Fitness Membership, $39.99 per month. Dad added himself 2 years ago. The numbers staggered me, over $5,000 annually, drained from our household. That's money that could have funded Emma's swimming lessons she begged for last summer, $180 monthly. The furnace repair we've postponed to next year, $2,200. Ethan's nursing certification program that would boost his salary by 30%. What exactly am I buying with this money? I whispered to the empty kitchen. The answer rang clear, their convenience, purchased at the cost of our future. My finger hovered over the mouse. Something broke loose inside me, not with drama or tears, but with the quiet certainty of a lock finally turning. I began with Netflix. 3 clicks and the secondary profiles vanished. Amazon required more time, removing authorized users one by one. The Verizon website proved trickier, but by 3 a.m., I'd transferred 3 lines off our account. Subscription by subscription, membership by membership, I severed financial ties built over years. No anger drove me now. Only the methodical precision of correcting a mathematical error that had persisted too long. The gym membership proved especially satisfying. Dad complained last month about the outrageous increase to $39.99. I clicked cancel membership without hesitation. When I finished, the room felt lighter. The spreadsheet now included a new column, reclaimed. The monthly total, $612.71, glowed on screen like a promise. The kitchen light flickered on. Ethan stood in the doorway, hair rumpled from sleep, concern etching lines around his eyes. "It's 5 in the morning," he said softly, moving to the kettle. "You okay?" "I think I will be," I answered, turning the screen toward him. For the first time in years. He studied the spreadsheet without surprise, pouring hot water into a mug. "I've wanted to suggest this for years. Why didn't you? Wasn't my battle to fight." He placed fresh tea beside me. "What made tonight different?" The memory surfaced instantly, Emma's face as she clutched her homemade card, watching her cousins tear through expensive presents. The pride in her eyes dimming like a candle guttering in wind. The look on Emma's face, I whispered, throat tightening, when she thought her card wasn't good enough. "I won't let them make our children feel less than anymore." Ethan's hand settled warm against my shoulder. "There will be fallout," he warned gently. "Your mother doesn't handle change well." I sipped my tea, tasting something beyond chamomile, perhaps the first sip of freedom. "I know. Let's get some sleep, we'll need it." He helped me close the laptop, leaving reclaiming safely saved for tomorrow's inevitable battles. As we walked back to our bedroom, I glanced at the children's doors. Behind one, Emma slept with her stuffed koala, dreaming of swimming pools in summer. Behind the other, Jake clutched his dinosaur, blissfully unaware of adult complexities. For them, I'd face 1,000 Carolyn Harris disapproving stares. For them, I'd weather whatever storm came when my phone began ringing tomorrow with demands and guilt trips. As I slid back into bed, Ethan's arm wrapped around my waist. "Proud of you," he murmured against my hair. The words settled into my bones, replacing the constant weight of obligation with something lighter, truer. Just before sleep claimed me, I realized what felt different. The crushing responsibility for everyone's happiness had lifted, leaving room to breathe at last. Tomorrow would bring chaos. But for now, I rested in the certainty that some boundaries, once set, can never be uncrossed again. My phone vibrated across the nightstand like an angry hornet at precisely 8 a.m. I ignored it, savoring the quiet morning with Ethan and the kids eating breakfast downstairs. The buzzing stopped, then immediately began again. And again. By the time I checked, the screen displayed 47 missed calls. The texts arrived in rapid succession. "Carolyn, what have you done?" "Tessa, Mom's crying. Fix this now." "Rick, your mother can't reach her friends. This is unacceptable." I placed the phone face down on the counter, poured myself a cup of coffee, and actually tasted it for once. The rich warmth slid down my throat, while the chaos I'd unleashed vibrated silently against the granite. That bad? Ethan asked, glancing at my upturned phone. That good, I corrected him, feeling oddly serene. The pounding on our front door shattered the moment. I opened it to find my parents standing on the porch with matched expressions of outrage. Behind them, 2 police officers shifted uncomfortably in the morning light. "This is my daughter," Carolyn announced, her pearl earrings catching the winter Sunday sun. "She hacked our accounts and stole our services." The younger officer, badge reading Murphy, cleared his throat. "Ma'am, can you explain the situation?" His eyes held a mixture of embarrassment and resignation. Clearly not the emergency he'd expected. "Certainly." I stepped back, inviting them in. The officers entered while my parents hovered in the doorway like vampires needing permission. "Would anyone like coffee?" "This isn't a social call," Rick snaps. Officer Murphy accepted a mug while his partner declined. I retrieved my folder from the desk, the one I prepared at 4 a.m., with printouts of every account, every payment record, each bearing my name as the responsible party. "These accounts are all in my name," I explained, spreading the papers across our kitchen table. "I've been paying for them for years." I simply decided to stop. The older officer scanned the documents, nodding slowly. "Looks like a civil family matter to me, not a criminal complaint." He turned to my parents. "These accounts are legally in your daughter's name. She's entitled to cancel services she pays for." "But she did it without warning," Carolyn protested. "We were in the middle of shows." Rick missed the golf tournament broadcast. The officers exchanged glances. Again, civil matter. "We recommend working it out as a family." They excused themselves. With apologetic nods toward me. From the porch, Carolyn's voice rose. "Family doesn't do this." I stood in the doorway, fingers gripping the frame. "Exactly. Family doesn't take advantage and call it love." Rick pointed a finger at me. "After everything we've done for you." "Dad," I interrupted softly. "I appreciate what you've done. But that doesn't mean I owe you unlimited financial support forever." They left in a storm of slammed car doors and squealing tires. Inside, Emma and Jake peered from behind the staircase. "Why were the police here?" Emma asked, eyes wide. I crouched to their level. Grandma and Grandpa were upset about something grown up. "The police just explained that everything is fine." "Are we in trouble?" Jake whispered. "No, honey. Sometimes adults disagree about things, and they need to work it out." By afternoon, the family group chat lit up like Christmas morning. Carolyn posted first. "We're heartbroken. This is not how we raised her." Tessa added fuel. "Can't believe my own sister ruined Christmas and left us without phones. Can't make this stuff up." "Uncle George, what's going on with Monica?" I began typing a response, then paused when an unexpected message appeared from Aunt Joanne. "Good for you, Monica. I did the same thing last year with my son. Had to stop the financial bleeding." A thumbs-up reaction came from my cousin Sarah. Within an hour, both Carolyn and Tessa had left the chat. When the phone finally fell silent, the house seemed to expand around me. Space to breathe. Room to think. For the first time in years, my shoulders dropped from their permanent position near my ears. That evening, while the kids finished homework, Ethan and I sat at our dining room table. I created a new spreadsheet, titled simply, "Add Back." The cursor blinked expectantly. Swimming lessons for Emma and Jake. $180 monthly. I typed, feeling my lips curve upward. Ethan leaned closer. "Weekend cabin getaway in Door County this spring. New tablet for your paramedic certification program," I added. We laughed as the list grew, naming it our no-guilt budget. The numbers added up to exactly what we'd been hemorrhaging to my family for years. "What do we do about your parents now?" Ethan asked, his hand warm against mine. "We wait," I answered. "We didn't take anything that wasn't ours. We just stopped giving what was never appreciated." The morning brought a single text from Carolyn. "Are we still invited to the children's winter recital?" I stared at the screen, the question hovering between olive branch and manipulation. The old Monica would have jumped to reassure, to smooth things over, to sacrifice. But the woman I'm becoming weighed her response with new consideration. Jake padded into the kitchen in dinosaur pajamas. "Mom, can I have waffles? Frozen or homemade?" I asked, setting the phone aside. Homemade. He grinned, showing the gap where his front tooth should be. As I mixed batter and heated the waffle iron, I realized something profound. The first pushback when setting boundaries often comes with accusations of cruelty. But cruelty isn't protecting what's rightfully yours. It's letting others take so much that your own children go without. My phone waited patiently for a response that would come in my own time. On my own terms. The waffle iron beeped, ready for batter, and I poured it in with a steady hand. A week later, I stared at my phone, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Carolyn's text glowed accusingly. Are we still invited to the children's winter recital? After careful consideration, I typed, yes, please come on time. No gifts, please. The reply came seconds later, a single period. Nothing more. My stomach tightened, but I refused to second-guess myself. Everything okay? Ethan asked, passing behind me with a basket of laundry. Just mom being mom, I sighed, pocketing my phone. She confirmed for the recital. You sure you want them there? His voice held no judgment, just concern. The kids deserve their grandparents' support, I answered. As long as they follow the rules. The phone buzzed again. A message from Aunt Beverly. Your mother tells me you're having financial troubles. We can help if needed. Then another from Uncle Steve. Heard about your situation. Everything okay with you and Ethan? My cheeks burned as I realized what was happening. The rumors had begun. Over the next week, the whispers multiplied. Cousin Jenny called, voice dripping with concern. I heard you're having some kind of breakdown. My second cousin, who I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, emailed, your sister mentioned you've become so materialistic lately. My mother's bridge partner stopped me at the grocery store. Such a shame about Ethan controlling your finances like that. I placed each tomato in my cart with deliberate care, fighting the urge to defend myself. That's not remotely true, Barbara, I said instead, voice steady. But thanks for your concern. That evening, Ethan's parents called. Unlike my family, they rarely interfered, which made their concern more genuine. We've been hearing some strange things, his mother began hesitantly. Something about you cutting your parents off? Ethan took the phone. Monica's finally standing up for herself, he explained, squeezing my hand. We're fine, better than we've been in years, actually. His mother's sigh came through the speaker. It's about time. We've worried for years about how they've taken advantage. The validation from his family soothed something raw inside me. But that night, as I helped Emma practice her recorder solo for the 5th time, reality intruded again. Why is Grandma saying mean things about you two, Aunt Tessa? Emma asked suddenly, lowering her instrument. I heard them on the phone yesterday when I went to the bathroom. My heart stopped. You heard Grandma on the phone at their house? Emma nodded. She didn't know I was there. She said you were being selfish and ungrateful. I sat beside my daughter on her bed, gathering words like delicate shells. Sometimes adults disagree about what's fair. Grandma and I are working through something difficult. Emma's eyes, so much like mine, searched my face. Is it because we didn't get big presents like Cousin Tyler? The question pierced me. No, sweetheart, I brushed hair from her forehead. It's because adults need boundaries too, just like you need rules at school. What's a boundary? She asked. It's like, remember when Jason kept taking your art supplies without asking? She nodded vigorously. Mrs. Miller made him stop. That's a boundary. Sometimes we need to tell people to stop taking things, even grown-ups. Understanding dawned on her face. Did Grandma take your things? Something like that, I answered carefully. But we're figuring it out. As the recital approached, tension built. Jake memorized his lines for the class play with intense concentration, repeating them endlessly at breakfast. Will Grandma and Grandpa come? He asked while trying on his costume, a handmade tree with branches Ethan crafted from pipe cleaners and felt. They said they would, I answered, not entirely sure. The costume needed adjusting at the shoulders, and I focused on pinning it properly. The night of the recital arrived with winter's first real snowfall. White flakes drifted lazily past the elementary school's floodlights as families streamed into the warmth of the auditorium. Emma clutched her recorder with nervous fingers while Jake bounced on his toes, scanning the growing crowd. There's Tyler. He pointed toward the entrance where my sister's family had just arrived. Tessa waved theatrically, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. But no sign of my parents. Places everyone. Mrs. Peterson clapped her hands, herding children backstage. I squeezed Emma's shoulder. You'll do great. Deep breaths. The lights dimmed precisely at 7. Principal Warner welcomed everyone with his annual joke about winter, bringing out the talent like snow brings out the shovels. Parents laughed politely. The kindergartners performed their song about snowflakes, missing half the words, but compensating with enthusiasm. 15 minutes into the program, a commotion erupted at the back of the auditorium. The third-grade choral arrangement of Winter Wonderland faltered as heads turned toward the disturbance. My parents made their entrance, forcing an entire row to stand as they squeezed through to the seats I'd saved. Carolyn's pearl earrings caught the stage lights, while Rick mumbled half-hearted apologies to those they disturbed. My stomach dropped when I noticed the gift bags clutched in Tessa's hands. Of course they couldn't follow one simple rule. Jake's class performed next, their play about the changing seasons earning appreciative laughter. When Emma's recorder ensemble took the stage, her eyes found mine. I gave her an encouraging nod, and she played her solo without a single mistake. Pride swelled in my chest, temporarily displacing the dread of what was to come. After the final bow, families gathered in the cafeteria for punch and cookies. I was helping Mrs. Peterson arrange the refreshment table when I saw Tessa approaching Emma and Jake with wrapped packages. We brought something special for our stars, she announced, her voice pitched to Carrie. I intercepted her, stepping between my children and the gifts. We said no gifts, Tessa. Please respect that. They're just little tokens, she insisted, loud enough for nearby parents to hear. Don't be so controlling. No means no, I said firmly, but quietly. We can visit next weekend if you'd like to spend time with them instead. Tessa's face contorted. This is ridiculous, she hissed. You're punishing the children because you're angry at us. Several parents turned to watch, conversation dying around us. My palms sweat, but I stood my ground. The children are doing wonderfully, I responded evenly. They know they're loved without expensive gifts. Tessa stared at me for a long moment, then stormed out dramatically, gift bags still clutched in her manicured hands. Rick followed reluctantly, shooting me a glare that would have crushed me just weeks ago. Carolyn lingered, clearly torn. She watched Emma helping a kindergartner reach the cookie tray, Jake showing his tree costume to a classmate. They worked so hard, she whispered, her voice smaller than I've ever heard it. Yes, they did, I agreed. That's worth more than any gift. She hesitated, then touched my arm briefly before following my father. The gesture isn't exactly surrender, but it's something close to recognition. As I gathered empty punch cups, Mrs. Peterson approached. Your children are so well-adjusted, Monica, not focused on material things like many kids these days. Thank you, I murmured, surprised by the compliment. Another parent, Lisa Morgan, whose daughter plays with Emma, added, it's refreshing to see someone setting limits during the holidays. We're drowning in stuff every year. For the first time since this boundary battle began, I felt a strange lightness. Not vindication exactly, but validation from an unexpected quarter. In the car driving home, snow falling gentle around us, Jake asked, why did Aunt Tessa leave so quickly? She had somewhere to be, I answered, exchanging glances with Ethan. But she brought us presents, Jake persisted. Emma, wiser than her years, piped up from the back seat. It's like Mom said, boundaries. Aunt Tessa needs to learn about boundaries. I caught her eye in the rearview mirror and saw something I'd rarely noticed before, a quiet confidence that mirrored my own emerging strength. The sight filled me with a fierce, protective joy that burned brighter than any Christmas light. I gripped my coffee mug tighter when the doorbell rang on Sunday morning, 3 days after the recital. The children were still upstairs, building a fortress of pillows and imagination. Ethan glanced at me from behind his newspaper, eyebrows raised in silent question. Not expecting anyone, I murmured, setting down my mug with a soft clink against the kitchen table. The bell rang again, more insistent this time, impatient fingers. I recognized the pattern, my mother's particular brand of urgency. I opened the door to find my parents standing on the porch, unannounced and unwelcome. Dad's jaw was set in that familiar stubborn line, Mom clutching her purse against her chest like armor. "We need to talk," Dad declared, pushing past me into the living room without waiting for an invitation. Mom followed, her perfume leaving a trail of expensive reproach in her wake. "This has gone on long enough." I closed the door with deliberate slowness, counting to 5 in my head. The techniques from those library books on family dynamics hadn't prepared me for the way my pulse quickens, the way my throat tightens when they invade my space like this. Dad planted himself in the center of our modest living room, surveying the toys scattered across the floor with thinly veiled judgment. "Do you know how much we sacrificed for you?" he demanded, voice rising. "The vacations we never took? The retirement accounts we borrowed from for your braces in college," Mom added tearfully, her voice wavering with practiced vulnerability. "I worked 2 jobs when your father was laid off. We gave you everything." The familiar guilt rose like bile, but something different happened now. It receded just as quickly, replaced by a startling clarity. "And I've been paying that debt my whole adult life," I responded, my voice calm despite the tremor in my hands, not just with money, but with constant emotional labor. Ethan appeared from the kitchen, coffee mug in hand. He didn't speak, just stood behind me, close enough that I could feel his warmth against my back. "I think it's time we discuss this properly," I continued, moving toward the small desk in the corner where I'd prepared for this moment. I retrieved a folder, blue, ordinary, unremarkable except for the power it contained. Dad scoffed. "What's this now? More dramatics." I opened the folder on the coffee table between us, laying out the first spreadsheet. The numbers stood in neat columns, irrefutable and damning. "This is a record of every financial contribution I've made over the past decade," I explained, my finger tracing down the list. $14,380 in direct loans that were never repaid. $9,200 in phone and subscription services. $3,750 in emergency assistance. Dad stared at the page, his mouth opening and closing like a fish suddenly finding itself on dry land. "I've never asked for repayment," I explained, my voice steady now, "but I do expect respect for our boundaries going forward." Mom reached for the spreadsheet, manicured fingers trembling slightly. "This can't be right." I turned to the second page, revealing another spreadsheet. "This shows the holiday gift disparities between our family and Tessa's over 5 years. The estimated difference totals nearly $8,000. The color drained from Dad's face as his eyes scanned the numbers. Shock replaced anger, his shoulders sagging under the weight of evidence he couldn't dismiss. I didn't realize it added up to this much." "It's not about the money," I clarified, though part of me screamed that, yes, it is about the money. The money that could have funded swimming lessons, the furnace repair, Ethan's certification. It's about the pattern of taking advantage and then making me feel guilty when I object. Ethan shifted behind me, his presence solid and reassuring. The morning light through the windows caught the gold flecks in his eyes when I glanced back at him. "Here's what needs to change," I continued, sitting on the arm of our sofa. My voice carried a newfound authority that surprised even me. "No more financial expectations. We're focusing on our children's needs." Dad opened his mouth to interrupt, but I raised my hand, stopping him cold. "Equal treatment of both families, or we'll limit contact. Respect for our boundaries about gifts and other rules, and no more showing up unannounced. Call first." Dad sank heavily onto our couch, the leather creaking beneath him. He suddenly looked old, the lines around his mouth deeper than I remembered. "We didn't see it as taking advantage." Mom wiped at her eyes, careful not to smudge her mascara. "We just thought, since you're so capable." "Being capable doesn't mean I should carry everyone," I responded, my tone gentler now. "That's not fair to me, to Ethan, or to our children." The silence stretched between us, punctuated only by the soft ticking of the grandfather clock Ethan inherited from his grandmother. Upstairs, a muffled giggle floated down, a reminder of what I was fighting for. "What about Tessa?" Dad asked quietly, his gaze fixed on the floor. "That's between you and her," I answered, refusing the bait. "I'm only responsible for my family now." Mom nodded slowly, reality finally sinking in. Her fingers worried at the edge of her silk scarf. We might have favored her, without meaning to. You did, I confirmed, the words sharp but necessary. But we can build something healthier now if you're willing. Dad's shoulders slumped further. For the first time in my life, I saw him not as the infallible authority figure of my childhood, but as a flawed man who made choices that hurt me, whether he intended them to or not. So where does this leave us? He asked, his voice rougher than usual. That depends on you, I replied, closing the folder. I've set my boundaries, the next step is yours. Ethan moved to stand beside me now, his hand finding mine. Mom looked at our clasped hands, then up at my face. Something shifted in her expression, recognition perhaps, or the beginning of respect. We should go, she said quietly to Dad. Give everyone some time to think. As they gathered themselves to leave, Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, Jake peering around her like a shadow. Grandma? Grandpa? Emma called, confusion in her voice. They were just leaving, sweetheart, I explained. They came by without calling first. Mom paused at the door, her hand on the frame. We'll call next time, she said, the words sounding strange in her mouth, like a foreign language she's learning for the first time. After they'd gone, Ethan pulled me into a hug. I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. You did it, he whispered into my hair. We did it, I corrected him, the truth of it settling into my bones like a homecoming, and we'll keep doing it, one boundary at a time. The children thundered down the stairs, full of questions and Sunday morning energy. As I turned to answer them, I felt something unfamiliar yet welcome, spreading through my chest, the lightness of sheets snapping on a clothesline, the taste of freedom. 6 months later, summer sunshine warms my shoulders as I kneel beside Emma in our backyard garden. Her small hands pat soil around a tomato seedling with surprising gentleness. The scent of fresh earth fills my lungs, simple and honest. Careful with that one, I guide her fingers. The stems are fragile. Our house feels different now, lighter somehow, as if the walls exhale more freely. No phone rings with urgent family demands. No unexpected financial obligations lurk in my inbox. Grandma called while you were at the store, Emma mentions, her voice casual, but her eyes watching my reaction. She asked if we want to go fishing with Grandpa next weekend. Just us, not Cousin Tyler. I brush dirt from my palms. Would you like that? Emma nods, sunlight catching the copper highlights in her hair. Grandpa says he'll teach me to bait my own hook. The doorbell chimes. I check my watch. Carolyn, right on time for once. 6 months ago, she would have arrived unannounced or 20 minutes late, expecting accommodation either way. I open the door to find my mother standing on the porch holding a modest gift bag. Her cream sweater looks familiar, not new, a small detail I never would have noticed before. I know we said no gifts, she begins, hesitation softening her voice. But I found Emma's baby book in the attic. I thought you might want it. Come in. I step aside, surprised by the lack of tension in my shoulders. No invisible weight presses down as she crosses the threshold. The air between us feels clean, tentative, but warming, like spring soil after winter. Later that evening, my phone buzzes with a text from Rick. Tessa wants to know if you'll host 4th of July this year. The whole family. Once, this request would have triggered an automatic yes, followed by weeks of preparation and resentment. My fingers hover over the keyboard before typing. We're planning a small gathering this year. No excuses. No lengthy justification. Just a clear boundary. Ethan notices my smile as I set down the phone. A year ago, you would have said yes and resented it for months. I finally realized I'm not responsible for everyone's happiness, I reply, folding laundry with unhurried hands. Just our family's well-being. The calendar on our refrigerator shows a new rhythm to our lives. Monthly family counseling sessions have replaced weekly crises. Tessa attended once, declared it pointless, and hasn't returned. But Rick and Carolyn continue showing up, fumbling toward change with genuine, if imperfect, effort. Our no-guilt budget funded swimming lessons for both children. Jake no longer asks if we're poor. Emma stands taller at school performances, confidence blooming like our garden tomatoes. Weekend trips to Door County replace services for ungrateful relatives. Ethan's certification program progresses steadily, his eyes bright with purpose when he studies late at night. At a neighborhood barbecue last weekend, I noticed Susan flinching as her mother-in-law criticized her potato salad. Hours later, she found me alone by the drinks table. They expect us to host every holiday, Susan confided, twisting her paper napkin. But nothing's ever good enough. I shared my story simply. You can love people without letting them consume you. Summer fades to autumn. The calendar fills with measured family commitments balanced against private time. We're preparing for another holiday season, but with different expectations in place. A card arrives from Aunt Joanne. Proud of you for showing us all a better way. I place it beside a simple photo of our family, Ethan, Emma, and Jake, laughing by the lake last August. Nearby sits a smaller frame with my parents. Their relationship to us mending, but appropriately sized now. Mom, Jake calls from the living room where he's building a Lego fortress. Grandma wants to know if we can come for Thanksgiving, but only if we're comfortable. She says it's totally okay if we have other plans. I exchange a meaningful look with Ethan. Progress. That night, while the children sleep and the house settles into peaceful silence, I write in my journal. I couldn't make my family honest, but I could make my home fair. I couldn't stop them from taking, but I could stop giving what they never respected. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's servitude. Real love makes room for everyone to stand tall. I close the book, listening to my children's peaceful breathing down the hall. Some gifts, like self-respect and peace, can't be wrapped, but they're the ones that matter most.